So this seminar is for educational purposes only. We're going to look at the hippocampus. The hippocampus is located in the medial temporal lobe of the brain, underneath the cortical surface. It is part of the limbic cortex, implicated in emotional regulation and memory. The interior part of the hippocampus is particularly intimately connected to the amygdala and the medial prefrontal cortex. Together, they form a network involved in stress regulation and emotional regulation. The hippocampal head is also reciprocally connected to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is part of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenaline cortical or HPA axis, which is involved in the stress response through releasing the glucosteroids such as cortisol. The hippocampus regulates the activity of the HPA axis. The hippocampus also modulates amygdala activity and its involvement in attention and emotional processes. So research suggests cortisol release can be adaptive during acute stress response, although psychological stress reactivity can lead to continued cortisol production and prolonging stress response, even turning into a chronic case, so the research suggests. So the research would suggest that potentially the cortisol starts causing damage to the hippocampal integrity in one or two ways by killing off the existing hippocampal cells, since cortisol is very toxic for them, resulting in hippocampal neural degeneration, and by preventing the new cells from being born and differentiating into hippocampal functional cells. A process called neurogenesis. This disruption of hippocampal neurogenesis increases the rate of hippocampal neurodegeneration. So the prolonged cortisol exposure, whereby hippocampus damaged by cortisol is able to provide regular feedback to the hypothalamus, leading to a continuous secretion of cortisol. This in turn causes more damage to the hippocampus and even more cortisol release. Once this neurodegeneration cascade begins, it can be challenging, so to speak, to reverse or to stop. This is important not only in supporting someone who's healthy and functional, but also you could make a case for the recovery and prevention in a number of psychopathologies, since hippocampal atrophy has been found to be quite found in various psychopathology, such as depression, psychosis, schizophrenia, post-traumatic stress, and OCD. So where mindfulness comes in is, the idea is by stopping this scenario from unfolding in its tracks, by dealing with this negative thinking and reducing stress reactivity. So in essence, the hippocampus is part of the limbic cortex associated with emotional regulation and memory, but it's involved in regulating HPA axis, involved in stress response. This is a reciprocal relationship between the levels of cortisol, hippocampal structural and functional integrity. So too much cortisol, as the research suggests, can lead to potential hippocampal damage. So hippocampal atrophy is associated, as we sort of spoke about previously in the research, with some major psychopathologies, and it's thought that's due to stress reactivity. That is the characteristics with significant amongst many mental health problems. So the research suggests potentially, you go through the research suggests potentially mindfulness has the potential to prevent the hippocampal damage by reducing stress activity.